On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, we'll talk about the array object. I will explain practical uses of arrays step by step in an easy-to-understand way. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. JavaScript's array object is one of the most important structures forming the foundation of all kinds of data processing. From basic array operations to higher-order functions useful for efficient data transformation, there are many features you should know. In JavaScript, arrays are a fundamental data structure for handling multiple values together. Here, we introduce how to create arrays and how to read and write their elements with simple examples. This code shows 3 ways to create arrays: how to read and update elements using indexes, and how to get the length using the length property. Array literals are the most common and readable, and are used most frequently in everyday situations. Arrays allow you to easily add or remove elements at the end or beginning. These operations are also useful when implementing structures like stacks or queues. Push and pop operate on the end of an array. They are ideal for implementing stack structures. Unshift and shift operate on the beginning of an array. However, be aware that operating on the beginning requires shifting all element indexes internally, which makes it a costly operation. When handling elements in the middle of an array, choose between splice and slice, depending on whether you want to modify the original array or not. If you just want to extract part of an array, use slice. If you want to modify the array itself, such as inserting or deleting elements, use splice. Slice only extracts elements and does not modify the original array. Splice adds or removes elements and modifies the array itself, so be especially careful about its impact on behavior. There are several ways to process arrays in sequence, and you can choose according to purpose and coding style preference. Here are 3 typical loop constructs. The for loop is the most flexible, allowing for index operations and fine control over iteration using break and other statements. For provides a concise way to handle element values and is the most balanced in terms of readability. forEach allows for functional style code and is well suited to side effect operations, like logging or updating data for each element. However, note that you cannot use break or continue, and it is not suitable for asynchronous processing with await. Map, filter, and reduce are higher-order functions that are frequently used when transforming, filtering, or aggregating arrays. Since you can clearly express repetitive processing, your code becomes simple and easy to understand. These methods allow you to focus on what you want to do in a declarative style, improving readability and helping avoid unwanted side effects. Here is an overview of search and condition checking methods. These are useful for finding elements that meet certain conditions or performing Boolean checks on the set. Find returns the first element that matches the condition. findIndex returns the index of the element that matches the condition. Sum returns true if there is at least one element that satisfies the condition. Every returns true if all elements satisfy the condition. All of these are very useful in array processing, so using them appropriately for the situation will keep your code concise and clear. Arrays are sorted using sort, but by default it compares elements as strings, which can lead to unexpected results when sorting numbers. When sorting numbers or objects, always specify a comparison function to sort them in the intended order. In a comparison function, a negative return value places A before B, a positive puts B before A, and 0 keeps their order unchanged. When copying arrays, it's important to understand the difference between reference copy and shallow copy. In particular, be aware that if there are objects inside the array, a shallow copy will cause the inner objects to be shared. When you assign an array to another variable, the array itself is not duplicated. Instead, the reference pointing to the same array is copied. With a reference copy, if you modify the contents of the array using the copied variable, those changes will also be reflected in the original variable that refers to the same array. Using slice or the spread syntax creates a shallow copy, because only the values are duplicated. The original and copied arrays are treated as separate entities. This code demonstrates that a shallow copy of an array created by slice or the spread syntax does not affect the original array. Even if you duplicate an array using a shallow copy, unintended sharing may occur if the array contains objects inside. This code demonstrates that with a shallow copy, the inner objects are shared, so modifying those inner objects affects both the original array and the copy. If you need independent data, you need a deep copy, such as using structured clone or JSON conversion. The following are utility methods frequently used when working with arrays. By using them appropriately for your purpose, you can write short and readable code. The includes method checks whether a specific value is included in an array. In this code, the includes method is used to concisely determine whether a specified value exists within the array. The concat method returns a new array that appends the specified array or values to the end, while keeping the original array unchanged. This code shows that concat is non-destructive, allowing you to generate a new array while preserving the original one. Using the flat method, you can flatten nested arrays. This code demonstrates the result of flattening an array by one level. Since flat lets you specify the depth, you can flexibly resolve nesting as needed. The flatMap method applies a transformation to each element and then automatically flattens the results into a one-dimensional array. This code shows an example where each string in an array is split by spaces, and the results are combined and flattened into a single array. The join method creates a string by concatenating the elements of an array with a specified separator. In this code, the join method is used to convert an array into a comma-separated string. Array operations may seem simple at first glance, but there are several points that can easily lead to unintended behavior. Many pitfalls are easy to miss during daily array operations, so keeping the following points in mind will greatly improve your code's reliability. Array sorts by string comparison by default. When sorting numbers correctly, you must always provide a comparison function. Copying arrays via slice or spread syntax, etc., creates a shallow copy. If your arrays contain objects, be careful because the original data may be unintentionally changed. Splice is a destructive method that directly changes the array, while slice is a non-destructive method that does not modify the original array. It is important to use them appropriately for your needs. forEach is not suitable for loops with asynchronous processing using await. If you want to reliably execute asynchronous processing in order, it is recommended to use for of. Below is an example that combines array methods to get the total age from user data, extract those who are 30 or older, and create a list of names. By chaining, reduce, filter, and map, you can simply write aggregation, condition extraction, and transformation of data. Such a data processing pipeline is highly readable and, as a style with few side effects, is often used in real-world applications. With JavaScript arrays, even basic operations are widely applicable, and by using higher-order functions, your code becomes more concise and expressive. There are many points to understand, but once you master how to use each appropriately, data processing will become much smoother. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel.